Hey you everybody, welcome to a Sketchcraft Shorty. So this is gonna be about a 5 minute little podcast here, talking about some fan art here, a little bit of fan development, a little personal development. So my preferred inking style when I'm using traditional pens, even when I'm working digitally, is to sort of work with a micron based approach where I draw everything with a thin micron pencil or pen, and then add thick and thin where I need to. It's kind of just how I grew up inking. Brushwork has never really been my thing, especially the synthetic brushes. Mostly because on traditional paper, I can't feel the brush touch the paper. Now, the past couple years, I have been using traditional brushes on some of my color pencil work, and it's been nice. Except that no matter how I bought a brush. Every brush there is Windsor Series 7, Kolinsky, whatever, from France, from Italy, from Japan. They all just seem to split after a while. And so it just gets really old. It gets really old, like messing with it. And with the synthetic pocket brushes, like what Scotty Young uses and the Creature Box dudes use, is you can't feel it. I can't feel when the brush touches the paper. So it sucks. It's like I've always wanted to be able to work out a brush technique where you just use one line to get thin and thick, because it seems to be a pretty fast way of working. Pretty fast way of working. So combine that with every time it starts to get colder out, I always tend to kind of make a little Bill Watterson Calvin Hobbes fan art, because it's one of those books that influenced me, at an early age. So what you see here is me working 100% digitally, no traditional art here. This is a Calvin original, right? And if we look here, here's the original strip as it existed in the comics, November of God knows '93, right? So almost 30 some years ago. Um, let's just go ahead and raise that up. Actually, that's a little bit there. That. So there you go, right? That's what it originally looked like. And then I went and did a panel test. So this is the original line art, which I found. It's what it looked like, low res, whatever. This is me redrawing it. Now you don't see my sketch in here. I inadvertently deleted it, but I will show you what my sketch looked like. I actually redrew. Looking at this, I redrew on my own using a round brush. Just my basic drawing round brush, folks. It's nothing special. This is how I pretty much draw everything. Looks like, I'm bring up to a 10 here. Looks like this. If we zoom in, you see it's just a basic round brush set to 72%. Could be 70, could be 60, whatever you like, but gives me a little bit of transparency. This is what I like to sketch out. Is I can come up here and kind of blob stuff in, and then scale it back down and get. And it's not perfect. I just like drawing with that. And then I inked over that using a brush. This is what I call the Scotty Calvin. I use a texture. I have a smooth version of this. Not that big a difference. See this texture? You get this effect when you use the texture here. What's it? Very minor. Anyway, this looks a little sharper because I sharpened it. Anyhow, I went and created this, right? And then I did color flats based off the original color selection. And then I did watercolor here using, these are Kyle T. Webster brushes. These are Kyle T. Webster's watercolor brushes. It's available in Photoshop. If you have it, you can get Kyle T. Webster's. And what I did is I selected the flat, right? See these flats here? And then I painted like selecting that I could paint a wash, right? I did a basic broad wash, and then I went over, right? See? So forth and so forth. That's what you see there. Now, my ability to do this is also based on the fact that I've done watercolor for about 10 years now, in minimal capacity, but I have consistently used it. So I know how it's supposed to sort of look, right? Like and feel and everything. So I then have worked this out further to, let's see here. You can see here. So here is the bottom panel. I'm gonna end up redoing this whole bit, which wasn't watercolored originally. Obviously, it was flat, basic colors, but I will do a watercolor version of this whole thing. So then you can see right here. This is what it looks like when I resketch and redraw out panel. I tried to build this tree a little bit more three-dimensionally for me, and then I worked on a couple different changes. Most notably here, um, Alvin's hand I kind of changed, right? So you could see more of it. And then I added some under, and I kind of worked on his mouth a little bit. And just little things like Hobbs's hand, kind of a big deal. And then I kind of worked on the facial expression a little bit. But not terribly long. Just, you got a guide, so it's no big deal. And then this would be the ink using my brush, using the brush. So with with this brush, again, this is also based off 2 or 3 different Kyle T. Webster brushes. I kind of mix the settings together. So like you can see, like you get this texture, right? See, look at that. You get it. Oh yeah, look at that. Whoosh. And then if I take that and go unsharp, my unsharp mask 3 times, you get a pretty sharp, cool textured line, right? So it's an imperfect brush, but allows you to get some of that thick and thin without using a traditional brush. Or, as I was told, sometimes Bill Watterson actually used a physical stick he picked up out of his backyard and got some of those lines. Like whatever, that's dope, but I can't. I'm not doing that. So to build this brush, look, sometimes you just gotta experiment. So I'm stuck in my room all week doing this sort of thing, and one thing I'll do is Scotty Young has been doing a lot of brush work with the Pocket Kurataga, whatever. He's using a Pocket synthetic brush, which I have. It doesn't work well for me because I can't feel the tip touch the paper, and it sounds so weird, but it doesn't work for me for some reason. But I did take Scotty. He did this big X-Men Babies piece, and these are actually his final inks. So I just want to see if using this brush could I go over, right? And I don't like to go to 200%, somewhere around here. So usually about 130%. And using the same, see, look at that thin. The thin, you can go. The trick is to get a little continuous stroke when you're doing it. Okay. Now, this is good practice to see if the brush worked, and it's good to learn kind of like, okay, where to apply thick and thin and the kind of pressure I'm looking for. The problem is you're not going to start out with a fully inked drawing by one of the best cartoonists out in the business, right? When you start your own art, you're going to have a sketch, and I know for me personally, I would have a sketch that looked like this. So I have to turn this opacity, let's see, down, right? Like so, and then go in on a new layer. You can see it definitely works. Now, why do this, Rob? Do you want to make a bunch of Calvin Hobbes fan art for the rest of your life? No. Do you want to do a whole drawn book in this style? I don't know. I know that like the way I work now with backgrounds, especially backgrounds, digital stuff, is it's a lot of like sometimes you got to use perspective tools like in Clip Studio Paint, which I don't like using, um, or I do a lot of it in like lasso tool rendering, which takes more time. It'd be nice to just be able to do cool brush work. So building tool sets that work and then testing them to to see if they work for you is the trick, because I got to this point where I'm working on this Mighty Morphin Power Rangers thing, and like I want to do this whole city thing, city background. I don't want to spend 10 years drawing out lines and lining everything up. I just want to do a loose sketch and then using my brushes, go in there and do this sort of ink work that that Scotty and them tend to do. With the main characters, I might do it more like my Bane, where I color it and draw over. But there's some blend for me that I want to do. So I had to make up, making up these sets, and then you learn when you study people. When you study people that you admire, you also learn things too. So the digital watercolor thing is kind of cool because uh, I tend to think it generally doesn't work, but looks pretty good for digital watercolor. And the backgrounds still need effort. I have done um, trees and stuff. That there's a trick with watercolor which I'm going to get into more in the future. I'm going to wrap this up, but where if you wanted to do trees and certain effects, you have to actually use a lasso tool to kind of like make the selection and then paint into, and then make the selection and paint into. To get those hard edge shapes, because no brush really, like if you just use these brushes as they sort of as if even this watercolor amazing, if I were to go and try to paint a tree, it doesn't quite have the same. The minute I lift the brush, it yeah, you got to use lasso tool. So it's to get that, like if I just come here and kind of pretend a tree, and then I had a broad, right? See? This is a rough, but you get the idea. I will work. I'll work all this out. But hey, no matter your age, no matter your skill level, there's something to always be learning and to improving on. And if you feel you have a weak spot, if you feel like you're like, hey, I'm not so good at this one thing, devote a week or two to just trying to like work on it. Even if you got other shit to do, fuck it. Like I'm being dead serious. I mean, unless you're putting a deadline, don't. People have product to ship. Don't make them wait. But if it's just on your own time, put aside your personal projects and experiment a bit, because you never know where you might get, and there will never be a one-all solution. Like if I said this is the Bill Watterson brush and it will get you all the effects, that's not true. This is me using a tool that worked for me. This tool may not work for you. You may, if you used it, you'd be like, I don't know if that's achieving the same thing, Rob. So, and it's not perfect. I mean, you can see his lines are way more rough in some ways, than mine, and they have that perfect Bill Watterson charm that I don't have. But it's still a product of how you draw and everything else. Um, but 2 weeks ago, I would not have been producing this. So here we're at. So it takes some experimentation. And then when you kind of feel like you got it down, then, go back to your other projects and see what you can bring with you. If you have any comments or questions, leave them below. As always, folks, like, subscribe, notify, blah, 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 blah. Send me money, whatever you want. I'll see you all soon. Sketchcraft Shorty, peace out!